What is up, Brahs? Siege has been on a tear, with it reaching its highest consecutive player counts on Steam in the last 3 years, breaking the all-time high viewer count with the latest 6 Invitational Pro League games, and we have the world's biggest streamer playing Siege as his main game with Jinxie, and a ton of hype going into the newest season that's bringing ACOGs back after nearly 4 years. I'm the most excited I've been about Siege in years, and if you're watching this, then I bet you are too. Whether you're brand new to Siege or returning after a long layoff, I'm here to get you caught up on everything that you need to know about Rainbow Six Siege in 2024 so that you can start making kids punch their monitors in ranked again just like the glory days. First, I'm going to be covering the most important parts of each season since September of 2020, which was Operation Shadow Legacy. I thought that this was fitting since this is when all of the scope and reticle changes initially happened. Each season, I will cover how to play the operator of that season, what you need to know about any operator or gadget changes that happened that season, and then a couple of my favorite cheeky tips and tricks for you to try out that's related to that operator or map or season. If you left off at a later season, then that's cool. I got all of them timestamped down below so you can click right where you last left off with this game. After I get you caught up with each season, I'm going to have a bunch of the best basic tips and tricks that you need to remember while playing, and of course, if you have any questions, then be sure to leave them down below in the comments because the Brah fam is the most helpful Siege community in the world with the biggest brains. And we got an answer, so without further ado, let's jump into it. Starting with Year 5 Season 3, we have Operation Shadow Legacy, where we got the operator Zero, or better known as Sam Fisher. Zero is a 3-speed 1-health intel/anti-gadget operator who has a device called the Argus Launcher. This launcher deploys cameras that can pierce through breakable and reinforced surfaces. This camera also has an infinite amount of laser shots that you can fire one at a time with a cooldown between each one. These laser shots can also be used to take out defending gadgets like mute jammers or bandit batteries, or do 5 damage to other players. A general tip that I really like is, if possible, try to get a camera in a high traffic area as early as possible because it can give you really good intel on defenders, especially if they're trying to get into position or roaming around. This camera off the start of Bank is from the jewelry front spawn, and it's so simple. You can take out the default lobby camera with just a couple steps to your right and then replace it with a SAM cam. If you want something a little bit more advanced, then check out this camera that's hidden behind some monitors on border, all from breaking a hole in the floor from below. You can even wallbang the monitor that's blocking your view and have even crazier, deeper views on the right. When you hold the Argus launcher, you will notice either 2 horizontal lines, a single arrow, or a double arrow. The double arrow means that it can rotate to both sides of the surface. A single arrow means that it can only view one side, and the horizontal lines means that it is not going to hit anything useful. Sam's kit is pretty solid, where he has the SC300K assault rifle or the MP7, and both of them have ACOGs now. For secondaries, he has the 5.7 or the Gon 6, which is a weapon that has a single shot explosive projectile that detonates on impact with surfaces and can be used for fast entries or even destroying bulletproof gadgets like the Maestro Evil Eye. Don't get excited about killing players with it though, because it only does 10 damage. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. Shadow Legacy was also the start of the new ping system, where you could yellow ping and the enemies won't know about it, and you can even smart ping, which is where you can ping the actual gadget and an actual gadget icon pops up for your entire team to see and where it is. The hard breach charge was also a new gadget this season, which is basically a small thermite charge that's limited to certain operators. And the other thing that you need to know about this season is this wild fuse spot on the balcony of the new reworked chalet, which maybe you don't know about if you haven't played since Year 5, but it can take out defending gadgets off the garage wall from 3 floors away. Not trying to overwhelm you here, but if learning an infinite amount of this type of stuff excites you, then you are gonna love Siege again. Oh yeah, Tachanka also lost his stationary turret and can walk around with an LMG and shoot fireballs now. Up next is Operation Neon Dawn, which was Year 5 Season 4. Aruni was the new defending operator this season, who is a 1-speed 3-health and is an anti-gadget/anti-entry operator. Aruni has a laser gate that you can set on walls, doors, windows, or hatches, and it deactivates after damaging gadgets or opponents. After 30 seconds, you do have the option to reactivate it by shooting the joint at the top, and it is fully bulletproof, so it can't be destroyed by anyone. If you or a teammate does get close to the gate, it will deactivate for you so that you can safely pass on through, so you don't need to worry about team kills. And this also allows for some really sneaky plays, like putting a laser gate on the outside of a wall, and then when an attacker goes to breach it, you use the sound cues, you back away, and once you get out of its proximity, it activates the gate and it destroys the breach charge that the attackers put on. Aruni brings the P10 Roni and the MK14 marksman rifle for primaries, and then the PRB92 for a handgun. For gadgets, she has barbed wire or a bulletproof camera, but something even better that she always has is her robot arm that can punch holes in any soft surfaces for crazy angles like this go-to one in one of the most popular bomb sites that you should remember. And you can do things like one-punch windows for fast jump outs. Besides that, this season also brought a Hibana change where you could shoot either 2, 4, or 6 pellets at a time, but do keep in mind that you do need 4 to open a hatch. A cool trick that you can do is that if you have a Cade Electroclaw under a hatch and that hatch is next to a soft floor, you can actually shoot 2 pellets next to the hatch, and when you detonate them, it's going to destroy that Cade Claw. Also, when you do break hatches, you should try to use only 2 pellets at a time if you have enough time, because if it's early enough in the round, the other team is most likely going to impact trick the hatch, and so if you use 2 at a time, you can bait those out and lose less charges. The other important thing to know about is that there was a Jaeger ADS change where his ADSs are now on a 10-second cooldown and can intercept an infinite amount of throwables. As long as it has that 10-second break in between each one, it's going to be good to go forever. Before, it was just a one and done type of gadget. Moving to Year 6 Season 1, which launched on March 2021, we got the attacking operator Flores. Flores is a 2-speed, 2-health anti-gadget / intel operator who has a device called the RCE Rotero Charge. This device is basically a RC car from COD, and it's best used for clearing defender utility. This device is remote controlled, and once you set it down, it's going to continuously roll forward until you activate it. Once you activate it, it's going to anchor to a surface, become bulletproof, and then detonate after a set amount of time. While driving around, it is vulnerable to being shot, explosives, and gadgets like mute jammers. These drones can be used in some really creative ways, like parkouring down the roof on Cafe to clear utility after some practice in custom games, of course, and used for clearing players from common anchor spots. A counter to Flores that isn't really well known yet is that Azami, who you will learn about later in this video, she can actually use one of her own gadgets, and once a Flores drone actually anchors down, you can actually use Azami gadgets to break them. One of the only ways to break an actual anchored Flores drone. And before we get into the new map changes, here is one of my favorite need-to-know tricks with Flores from a previous tips and tricks video I did. Up next is the method on how to take out Aruni gates in any utility that might be placed on the other side. Now, since Flores drones have armor that gets wrapped around it when you choose to detonate, you can actually use this to your advantage even more and do a jump before activating it, allowing the drone to continue moving forward until it lands. Now, when you take that into account, you can then basically just jump and then pre-fire the detonate button so that the drone gets its armor, deactivates, and passes through the Aruni gate all without being destroyed, and then it's going to land on the other side to take out any defender utility, all while saving extra utility for your own team. Border was the map that was reworked this season with some good quality of life changes, like the new balcony from top east going over waiting that connects to break, and then in security the hatch is now not centered anymore. The tunnel at top east that used to be outside and you'd be detected is now inside, so shout out to Ubisoft, we can now do runouts here even easier. We have shortened lockers in armory and a sideways one so that you can now cross the window without just straight up giving a kill away. We now have a gap in the shelves when we vault into supply, a new door in that same room for our new rotations, and then one of the biggest changes to the map is that we now have an extension of the bathroom so that it connects to the wall in tellers. There are a lot of crazy cool tricks for Border, but you'll see those across my entire channel in tricks videos, but I am going to leave you with this crazy Counter-Strike like nade throw to land in a high traffic area at the start of a round. All you got to do is from the south spawn, run up until you find the broken wall, where you can just walk about 6 inches onto it and elevate. You're going to look straight towards the building and then look in the gap between these 3 clouds. This is extra easy now that you have a grenade indicator. You can throw your drone first because your drones do have the same projectile throw as grenades, so that's also a good tip to keep in mind if you're trying to figure out lineups. And then yeah, just pull out the nade and let it fly. Besides that though, this season they added the match replay, so you can now go back and watch some of your recent games from any perspective and see exactly what's going on. All right, on to the next season. Year 6 Season 2 is called North Star, and this season we got the Defender Thunderbird along with a Favela rework. The rework is basically a whole new map but rebranded, and a bonus tip is that if you like Valk, then the light bulbs on this map are your best friend because they hide Valcams really well. Anyways, Thunderbird is a 2-speed 2-health support operator who has a deployable device called the Kona Station. The Kona Station gives an HP boost or offers a revive to a downed operator that's in proximity. Thunderbird has 3 of these healing stations and is a solid character to try for beginners because she's easy and really helpful. Just remember though, the healing station will also heal attackers, so don't just go around and place them around the map in easy access areas. that attackers can easily find. Thunderbird's loadout is the Spear 308 or the Spaz 15, and then the secondaries are either the Bearing 9 SMG, which has quite a lot of recoil, and the Q929 pistol. For gadgets, she can choose between barbed wire, a bulletproof cam, or a deployable shield. Besides that, in North Star, they did also add the interaction change where you can melee Maestro Evil Eye cameras and Mira's Mirror. Melusi was also nerfed so that if you enter the proximity of a wub, it's going to open up and it can be shot. Smoke through walls was finally patched. They made bodies disappear after death, so that means no more hiding in bodies, and they did finally remove bullet holes in walls. So if you play right now, you are not going to need to worry about dying to those, which is especially good now that we have ACOGs on defense again. This season's operator is really straightforward, so not going to spend a ton of time here, so let's move on to the next one. Year 6, Season 3 is next, where the attacking operator Osa joined us. Osa is a 1 speed 3 health intel / support operator who brings 2 transparent bulletproof shields that can be carried or deployed on floors and window frames. Osa's shields can also be taken out with explosives, and they will shatter from being meleeed, but if they do get meleeed, they are going to still block bullets. On the side that you place the shield, there is a canister like Mira where if popped, it's going to destroy the shield. One of my favorite strats with Osa is when you attack the basement on bank, you can place one of your shields on the server rack on the right and then open up the wall into sight, where you have constant opportunities to peek up above the shield and take out defenders, because defenders are constantly peeking this line of sight. You could also walk into sight while holding the shield and then plant the diffuser behind it, and if you get a setup like this, most of the time it's gonna be a guaranteed win for you. Osa brings Thermite's 5.56 and Jackal's PDW for primaries, and then the PMM pistol for a secondary. For gadgets, Osa can choose between claymores, grenades, or EMP impacts, which are mini Thatcher EMPs that temporarily deactivate nearby opponent electronic devices. These impact EMPs are actually added later on in Operation Brutal Swarm, but they were given to Osa, so I figured I'd do a quick overview here. A good side note is that Fuse can also place cluster charges on Osa shields so that you can do things like fuse through the top of skylights, which is a lot of fun and actually pretty useful for clearing defender utility on sites like the top floor of Cafe. Another side note is SAM cams can also be shot and pierced and go through Osa shields. This season, Twitch's shock drone was changed to a laser zap that seems to have an infinite amount of range, and that allows you to do some crazy shock drone lineups like this main gate of Clubhouse all the way to the hot tub balcony wall to get mute, bandit batteries, and even Cade Claws if they were placed low enough to get off the wall. A fuse change also happened this season where he was given the ability to fuse through reinforced walls. It does need to drill through the wall first, and it's a new sound, so if you hear an unfamiliar drilling sound while standing next to a reinforced wall, then be on the lookout for a cluster charge. This season they made small changes to Bank, Clubhouse, and Coastline also. Almost every vehicle on Bank has now been moved around, so we're not going to be able to just take 2 steps outside of the Bank triple doors or the ATM entrance and one tap the new player off spawn within 2 seconds. I even went for it with Godly and he didn't kill anybody within the first 3 seconds, so yeah, I'm going to say it's pretty safe as of right now. With Bank, we're also going to see a new bottom floor elevator area with the hatch swapped to the other elevator. All bars that were inside of the windows and doors have been removed, so we can finally stop mag dumping the metal railings. The server room is stretched out a little bit more, so you have a little bit more room to move around, which is nice. The teller's hatch that used to be behind the desk is now pushed back into the lobby, so it's actually pretty easy access for attackers, especially Habana. There's a new doorway that goes into ATMs from the lobby. The railings on Banana upstairs have more cover. Top square railings are now destructible. Angles on skylights have been removed, covered, or reduced. And there's finally a rotation from alley spawn to the other side, so you can easily run to each of the spawns without needing to go onto the roof. Speaking of the roof, there is a rotation from the top of alley to get to that first skylight. I know before you used to be able to do like a parkour sequence, but now it's not needed. You can simply just run on this path. One thing that I am a little bit bummed about is they did patch the Spider-Man windows that people would like rappel up and then shoot in through the top floor. For Coastline, the exterior wall in VIP now has a soft double wall instead of a window. There's an extra path to rotate inside of VIP. There's also no more metal bars on windows that cause frustration, so the whole delivery area looks a lot different. The hanging arch at the top of courtyard is now covered in metal, which stops a lot of annoying lines of sight. The bookcase in theater is now solid. Yeah, I know you need to know about that one. And you won't be able to plant in the door of delivery anymore. I don't believe it was a bug, but when I tried, I was straight up not able to plant there. You're gonna actually need to push further in before you get the option. With Clubhouse, we have the new bar rotation, which also goes with the new bomb that's moved into the bar instead of in stock. You're going to be able to move 360 around the map outside with the new kennels to construction paths now being connected. And they also cut angles for spawn peaks, which was probably needed, even though it was fun while it lasted again. Overall, some pretty solid quality of life changes, and OSA is a lot of fun, and we see here a lot in Pro League too, so really good operator. Year 6 Season 4 was called High Caliber, and it brought in the new defender Thorn. She's a 2 armor 2 speed from Ireland, and she's bringing the new trap gadget called the Razor Bloom Shell. This trap basically makes you a portable cap can because you can throw this thing literally anywhere. You can throw it outside, inside, on top of doorways, inside of doorways, in the shark's mouth, on a downed opponent, or anywhere else you want. The strongest combo we did so far was combining a goo mine or clash in a random spot on the map, usually away from sight. This worked best. And then we placed a razor shell next to it because it's literally an insta-kill if they are slowed and hurt from the goo mine and can't escape the proximity of the shell. Similar idea to Clash because you can see and slow them down and kind of trick them into chasing you through a doorway, which they'll get trapped from. Anyways, once it's placed, you can pick them back up, and it acts like a Wamai disc when thrown, so you'll need to wait until the proximity fills up before it'll detonate. It'll trigger based on proximity of the attacker, and it'll one-shot you if you're close enough, with the damage dropping off the further you get away from it. Thorn has 3 of these, and you can make some crazy combos like Clash Thorn or Melusi Thorn, and it'll slow the attackers down so that they're trapped inside. Legion Thorn is insane and will generally insta-kill attackers, and there's much more, so you'll have a lot of freedom with her. But do keep in mind that you can shoot them, Twitch drone them, see them with IQ, and even after they've been detonated, you'll still have a second or two if you can react quick enough and take them out before you get slammed with a million different shards.
Thousands of metallic fragments, destroying everything in its path.
We're getting the reworked Outback in this update, which is also going to be in ranked, and while the new Outback still feels fresh, not so much was changed that it's really hard to learn. They fixed a lot of the annoying spots, and Bull still feels like a little bit like a death trap, but some of the bigger changes are that there's a ton of changes to the exterior, which will help attackers approach the building and sites without getting spawn peeked. There's new balconies, garage is segmented so it's not just open and cluttered. There's a new wall from the top of garage into office. The area between shark and restaurant is segmented more. You can create nasty angles through top shark with the new soft wall upstairs and over the new restaurant gap. Terrace is now partially inside, so it makes it easier for rotations for attackers and defenders, so you can rotate from one side of the map to the other without needing to go outside or through ballroom. And then one of the biggest changes is that the bomb site is now piano laundry instead of games laundry. The flow of bathroom downstairs feels much better now, and it doesn't have a lot of random doors and clutter in the area. And upstairs in dorms, we are going to have a new double soft wall, which is insane for runouts and spawn peaks, but more on that later in the video. Now, not a whole ton did come out with Operation High Caliber, but they did add some random customization options like being able to change team colors and choosing how complex you want the compass. Anyways, let's get into the fun thing. My favorite spawn peak on this map is going down into the garage, pinging the middle point with the default cam outside, and this is the halfway point to the camping spawn. Once you ping the floor out there, you can melee it at an angle, and then you will have a line of sight down into the camping spawn on attackers that are running and approaching the building. And because these walls have 2 layers on them, anyone that's running from the gas station spawn on your left actually has a hard time seeing this melee hole. Basically just our new Dollar Tree bullet hole spawn peak that you should definitely be on the lookout or go for if you want to get a free kill. We are on year 7, and year 7 started off with one of my favorite seasons of the year with Operation Demon Veil and the new defender Azami. Azami is a 2 health, 2 speed, yeah I said health not armor, they changed that wording, and her ability is going to be that you can throw a device called the Kiba Barrier that sticks to any surface and releases a gas that solidifies and creates a barrier. Azami has 5 of these, and they are on a cooldown, so you're going to be able to use a couple of these during the prep phase to help with some of the craziest new custom site setups that you've ever seen. And then you're going to get the rest of the barriers throughout the round. These can be placed on any surface to create some of the craziest spawn peak angles, block doorways, reroute paths for new site setups, and so much more, like throwing them outside and using it to vault over and get a line of sight on somebody running from a spawn. Okay, yeah, that's a little extreme, but you see the possibilities here, right? This is part of what makes her a fan favorite in Siege, and one of the reasons she was nerfed so that her barriers are now vulnerable to bullets. It takes Thermite's assault rifle 36 bullets to break a barrier, a DMR will take about 11 bullets, and the Supernova shotgun will take about 3 shells. Basically, the stronger the caliber of bullets, the less bullets it'll take to break a barrier. The main changes that happened in Demon Veil were the Goyo rework, where he no longer places a shield with his explosives, and and you can now place these incendiary bombs instead. These can be placed on floors and walls, which are kind of cool because now all of those cool maestro and bulletproof cam spots that we know about, yeah, we're gonna be able to put those Goyo explosive bombs up there and then make some really crazy traps.
Look at Blacktop, John. Tell me what you think. Oh, Blacktop.
Besides that, the Valk nerf happened this season along with all outside defender cams where they lose signal after about 8 seconds outside. You know your boy is still throwing them out there for early kills though, like this spot here on Theme Park that still works like a charm. The other change that might be new to you is the attacker repick that launched in Demon Vale, where you can change attacking operators during the drone phase. Picked Fuse, but they're not in the basement to receive your rain from above? All good, you can swap and play Blackbeard and rappel on a window for the entire round instead. Emerald Plains was the map that came out mid-season, and I'll just cap this section off with a couple of my favorite tricks from it. This first one is a good attacking angle, and this is for when the defenders are defending the kitchen. People like to head glitch on top of the kitchen counter, and you can actually get some really tiny angles through the car that looks through the window perfectly to the head height of people standing on the counter trying to peek you. The second one is going to be a spawn peek that spawn peeks towards the north side, and it happens really fast. The spawn peek is well known though, so careful going for it. This next one is an angle from meeting that goes over the reinforced wall and to attack a kitchen counter yet again. The fourth is an angle from meeting that goes down to the common entrance doorway all the way down on the floor below. As soon as they melee the door, you're going to have an angle straight onto them. This next one is another attacking angle with Maverick, and this one is again attacking the kitchen on the bottom floor. You can stand on top of the statue, put a single hole in the wall, and then have a disgusting angle through sight. Year 7 Season 2 is next, where we were introduced to the attacker Sens, who is a 3-speed 1 health support / map control operator. And their ability is that you can throw a device called the ROU projector system, which is a throwable rolling device with a lighting system that projects a screen to obstruct visibility. Sens is going to have 3 of these, and you'll immediately have all 3 after spawning in. None of them are going to be on a cooldown like Wamai or Azumi. The ROU projector systems can be rolled on the ground, through the ground, bounced off of doors, and even yeeted up in the air to land crazy spots like a CSGO smoke throw. One of the interesting details about this gadget is that it is only a visual block. You can crawl, walk, sprint, throw gadgets through, and even shoot through these because they are literally just little projectors that emit light. This was really game changing in the games that I tested out because you could block off huge lines of sight, because when they're just rolled in a straight line, it'll be about 12 meters long, which you can use to block huge lines of sight to make plays, plant the bomb, or just rush in with 5 high-capped guns to take out defenders before they even know what hit them. You guys ready?
Oh, this is free.
Free fire.
Left on the door. Left on the door. Smoke. Shotgun. Dead.
I'm pushing up.
Oh, let someone through it.
All right, they're all down. They're all down. Let's go. Let's go. Now, it is definitely strong in the right moments, but there are quite a few counters that you guys do need to know about. Because this is a throwable, both Jaeger and Wamai gadgets will catch it. The only difference here is that even once the Wamai disc catches it, it will eventually drop it, but it will change the direction that it was meant to be thrown at. Azumi gates do destroy these, but you are able to roll the ROU projector underneath of them with a precise throw if you want to. Barbed wire slows them down while they roll through them. Bulletproof cameras, evil eye cams, warden, and glass all can see through the projections just like they can with smoke grenades. And while you can team up with glass for some strong duo combos, this directly felt like a warden buff while playing him, because once you see the ROU projections thrown up, you could just stand and hold an angle at a good spot, and most of the time they walked into my line of sight. Now, because each wall of green light is coming from a projector on the ground, you can destroy them with impacts or any type of explosion, as well as whatever section of the ROU projections are in range of a mute jammer, they will be disabled. Operation Brutal Swarm is next, which was widely considered one of the most underwhelming seasons ever with the release of Grim, but I am happy to say that he has had quite a lot of changes since then, and he's a lot of fun now. Grim was the attacking operator that we got in Year 7 Season 3, and he is a 3-speed 1 health operator that specializes in map control, and they say frontline, but I think it makes more sense if you describe him as intel. His gadget is a launcher that fires a canister that releases a swarm of bots that ping and reveal opponents passing through it for a limited time. You can select between sticky or bouncing when you decide to shoot your canister, so you can create some cool pool-like trick shots with bouncy in order to get some bots into some cool spots. For example, you can bounce him off of walls and go a floor below, or you can angle him just right and get bees down this drone hole on coastline to hit a defender playing in the common area, which will get your team a free kill. Grim has 5 shots with the launcher, and they do cover a large area, so it's a good way to get lots of intel because if anyone is pinged by the bots, they will be visible for the entire team. Grim has the 5.52 Commando and the SG CQB shotgun for primaries, and then the P229 or the Bailiff for secondaries. For gadgets, he has the EMP impacts, claymores, or the hard breach charge, which means he can do a little bit of everything. He can run and gun with the Commando, open soft walls with the shotgun or Bailiff, and even play support with EMP impacts or hard breach, so he's actually really well rounded. Besides that, Brutal Swarm did bring the Stadium map, which is a hybrid between border and coastline, so I'll leave a couple of my favorite tricks for that map here, and then after that we'll move on to the next season. Up first, we have some insane angles from a gaming gamer, with the first one being one of the only across the map angles on Stadium. Starting in Penthouse, you're gonna walk around the armrest and balance around the back until you're next to the wall. Step back just a little bit from the corner, and then you'll have this angle to watch attackers that are making pushes up yellow stairs. Now, if you want to use this as an across the map angle, you're gonna just need to shotgun or impact open up the fountain walls along with the office wall, and then you'll have a nearly invisible line of sight that goes straight to attackers' heads if they go anywhere along this path. Up next is a specific fuse placement to bounce a cluster charge off of a shelf to take out anyone that's playing the half wall in armory lockers. All you have to do is fuse the top left corner of the armory window, and it's going to actually send a projectile over the top right of the shelf and bounce to behind half wall. This room is based off of the same armory from border, so you already know how popular it is for defenders to play here, and this makes for a great combo if you do it at the same time as having a teammate open up the armory wall. Back over to armory, we have a C4 throw that I've been doing since the map came out, and it still works insanely well. You can either run out of the door or blast open the wall enough to step out, but once you do either or, you're gonna just aim slightly left of the W on the compass, and you're gonna be able to land your C4 right in the middle of the 2 wall panels, which seems to be one of the more common paths that attackers take after spawning in on the west side. Just throw a Hail Mary throw. Maybe I step out for a sec. Yeah. Oh. Another trick that you can do around the same area is you can play as Pulse, and then when attackers go to hard breach armory upstairs, you can pull off this crazy C4 that will not only kill attackers around the area, but it will also destroy any hard breaches that they may have placed. This throw is really high up, so you got to give it a try in custom games to get the feel for it, but once you do, you're going to be throwing Kobe's all game. If you do have impacts instead of a C4, you can also trick this wall with impacts if you throw them at the vertical pillar, but do keep in mind the impact's blast radius isn't going to be able to reach charges if they're placed on the far east part of the wall. Moving on to Year 7, Season 4 that launched in December of 2022, we have Operation Solar Raid, where we got the defender Solus. And at the time of upload, all of this information is accurate. I do know that Solus is due for a nerf though, so I guess this section may be subject to slight changes. Solus is a 2-speed, 2-health operator, and her ability is that you can activate a gadget called the Spec-IO electronic sensor. The best way to think about the new gadget is it's kind of like an IQ on defense. This gadget activates a visor where she can see and detect enemy gadgets in real time. If Thermite pulls out an exothermic charge and holds it while deciding which wall to put it on, Solus can track it in real time. She can also track anything with electronics, such as drones, claymores, or an attacker that's on their phone. She can track Lion, Jackal, or any other attacker that uses electronics once they have activated their ability. If you want to get a little bit more complex, Solus can even track an IQ that might be looking for you, which will cause some really interesting 1v1s through some walls. Solus's gadget is on a charge, which is similar to Warden's glasses, and you'll have it immediately at the start of the round, but it does get drained. If it does get drained, you're going to need to wait for it to charge to a certain amount before activating it again. So it's better to toggle it on and off before it fully runs out, or else you might be stuck without the option to use it for a period of time. You can track enemies that are on their phone and get the pick on them through the floor. You can track a hard breach in real time and call out which side of a reinforced wall they're going for so that you can trick the wall before they even do it. And there's a lot of post-plant potential because Solus will be able to spot the diffuser even if it hasn't been seen yet. All of these things are possible within a 15-meter range, and for anybody that's wanting to compare, Pulse's range is 9 meters, so there's a slight advantage there, but Pulse does have the C4 and there's no cooldown on his gadget, so lots of things to think about on what you want to do when you're deciding what lineup you like. Now, Solus is the only one that can see the live information, but if you want to share it with the team, you can either use your comms or you can use a second ability which sends out a scan which will ping every single gadget that's in the center of your screen. During the prep phase, one thing that's pretty fun to do and really helpful is to walk around and look for faraway drones and then tell Mozzie where to place his pests so that you get a ton of extra free drone intel on defense. Now, there's a lot of ways to use Solus, but there are quite a lot of counters that you guys need to know about. Because this is also an electronic device, IQ will be able to see you while you're using it, and like I briefly mentioned earlier, I think this is going to create some pretty interesting 1v1s that are going to be happening through walls and floors. Another thing to keep in mind is that Solus isn't like Warden, where the gadget works while you're able to use your gun. When Solus has her gadget active, you are going to be really vulnerable because you can't hold your weapon at the same time. Besides that, if you're in range of Thatcher EMPs or Impact EMPs, it is going to disable your Spec IO electronic sensor, and Solus can still be hunted down by an attacker such as Jackal, Lion, or Grim, so there are no immunities there. For Solus's loadout, you have the ITA shotgun or the P90 sub for primaries, and no, unfortunately, there are no scopes on the P90 as of right now. The secondary weapon is the SMG-11, and then for gadgets, you have an impact grenade or bulletproof camera. The map that came out with Solar Raid is called Nighthaven Labs, and I like it a lot. I do see this map being a challenge to learn for new players, but some of the helpful ways to remember it is that there are 3 floors. There's the basement, the main floor, and then the second floor. The basement has a lot of greens to it, the main floor has a lot of yellows, and then the second floor has a lot of bluish teal colors. This next part is what helped me the most, and that there's 4 staircases to remember here. The one that's kind of centered and located slightly on the northwest side will take you to any floor you want. This is the only staircase that can go all the way up and all the way down. There are 2 staircases that will take you from the main floor up to the second floor, and those are located in the southwest and northeast corners. And then lastly, there's the basement access that also has its own secondary staircase option, and that is located on the east. I highly suggest jumping into a custom game and kind of taking note about where each staircase is and try to visualize it all as you're running around the map. Once you do have the hang of where the main stairs are, the rest will slowly come together, but that initial knowledge is going to give you a huge advantage over the enemy early in the season. And here, let me cap this one off with a few of my favorite tricks on Nighthaven Labs. The first one is a rappel angle where you can see defenders after opening the big outside wall, and it's kind of like a little head peek that's over the shipping container. Defenders are only able to see the very top of your forehead, and you're pretty much invisible. This is a great one to hold while somebody breaches the wall. You know, I need to include at least one solid spawn peak on this map. This one is going to be jumping out of electrical at about between the 52 to 50 second mark. And then all you're going to do is run out, 90-degree turn to your right, and there's going to be somebody sprinting towards you. This one here is an alternate way to use gridlock and have multiple small sets of traps for a flank watch on Nighthaven Labs. Standing on the warehouse catwalk, if you throw your gadget to the top of the brown trim, it will then land on a joint that will let your gadget open up. The places that it deploys the track stingers just happen to be in pretty good spots, like there's 2 sets on the stairs, 1 set at the top of the catwalk, and then even a bonus one if somebody jumps out of the window into warehouse. This one here is just a quick echo drone that's really strong for kitchen defenses. Simply throw your drone towards the top of the ceiling and then it'll bounce off and land on the light below. It's basically a flat, movable val cam in a really good spot. The center light does seem to be the best one that provides the best views while still hidden. When you're defending upstairs on Nighthaven Labs, the wall that's in connector leads outside and it can be pretty difficult to protect, but there's actually this crazy cade spot that's unlike almost all other cade spots in the game. If you go prone, you can shoot out the floor in the spot that you see me do, and then you can throw this Tom Brady precision cade claw to land on the top of the light below, which just happens to be at the perfect range to electrify both walls and be 100% immune to Cali. Even if an attacker goes below, the claw literally blends in when it's thrown correctly, so it's pretty nuts. Really strong combo that I've been doing a lot this season is by going on top of the roof, dropping on the connector terrace, having a friend open it up for you, and then being ready to shoot as soon as it opens up. You can get a lot of picks, especially people peeking from electrical. You can elevate on top of this laptop in nanotech and look over like the lab station. It goes through the wall, through assembly, and then onto the main breach. Moving into the start of year 8, we got Operation Commanding Force, where the attacking operator Brah was introduced. Brah is a 3-speed 1 health anti-gadget / intel operator. She has a Kludge drone, which is a drone that either takes control of electronic devices or destroys them after a short delay. Basically, she can hack certain defender utility like Capcan traps or Valk cams, but if it's something that doesn't make sense to have on attack, then it destroys it, such as a Cade Claw. Brah has the Para 308 or the Cameras DMR for primaries, and then the Super Shorty or USP 40 for sidearms. For gadgets, she has smokes or claymores. My favorite trick with Brah is on Skyscraper, and it's how you can rappel up outside of karaoke and then throw your drone up into the perimeter of the ceiling trim. This trim on the ceiling has a purple light around the edges and it hides your drone so well. This is insane for regular drones or your Kludge drone, and this is the bomb site. You're going to be hacking away and gain a ton of help for your team. Up next is Operation Dread Factor that brought in a very good defender named Fenrir. He has a solid kit and is kind of like a smoke alternative, but instead of poisoning attackers, he can block their vision. He can place up to 6 of his gadgets down, and you can have 3 active at a time. Say you place all 6 down and you want to activate a different one, you're going to need to look at an active one, deactivate it, and then look at the one that is inactive so that you can activate that one. Hopefully that 5-second explanation makes sense. Basically, you can throw 6 down, but only 3 can be active at a time. You can do this from far away, and they will even have notifications about what room each one is in when you look at it, so it's a lot less confusing than it sounds. The observation blocker gadget was introduced in Dread Factor, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a gadget that blocks attackers' drone's vision, but nothing else. As long as you're on a defensive camera, you are still going to be able to see through it. Consulate was the map that got reworked here, and it is a lot more close quarters now. The best bomb sites still seem to be the top floor and the garage, but a quick tip here is to remember that you can break the top of the reinforced section of the wall in the garage, and then get either C4s or impact nades over the top to stop attackers, and vice versa. If you're attacking, you can get nades over and other throwables for yourself too. Operation Heavy Metal is the operation that we got for Year 8 Season 3, and we also got a new badass operator, who is an attacker from South Korea named Ram. Ram is a 3 armor 1 speed, has the R4C, the LMGE, ITA-12 shotgun, or the MK19mm for secondaries, and then either stuns or hard breach charges for gadgets. Ram has a device called the Boogie Auto Breacher, basically a Bugatti tank. This device is a deployable mini tank that moves along a set path of destroying devices and breakable surfaces in its way. It's basically a really cool soft breacher / utility clearer. Once you place it down, you can toggle between straight, slight left, or slight right. Once you're ready, just hit the gadget button again and it'll drive the path that you have set for it. These mini tanks are bulletproof, but they do have a canister on the back where if it gets shot, then it's going to be destroyed. Impacts and C4s are also going to break the mini tanks, and if it's placed within range of a mute jammer, then it will be jammed. Just keep in mind that once it's on its path, if it drives into the range of a mute jammer, then it will not stop. Another thing to keep in mind is that these tanks are insanely loud. They're probably the loudest thing in the game now, and so they can make really good distractions and mess up sound cues for defenders. You can even do some really sneaky things like place them on windowsills while on rappel and then activate it after moving to another location to use it as a distraction. These tanks have a surprisingly large area of effect and will deal 5 damage per tick if a person is caught within range while the mini tank is moving. A really cool go-to tactic with Ram is when you attack the kitchen on Cafe, you can place 2 tanks starting in mining, and these are going to go through the wall into train as well as break the floor in both rooms, which opens up an insanely huge percentage of the site below. This was even used in the recent SI games just a couple weeks ago by some of the best players in the world. The other thing that you should know about Heavy Metal is that this is the season that brought in the Frost rework, where you can now self-res if you get caught, but you will walk around leaving a blood trail after, as well as grunt and make noise like you're hurt. The final season of Year 8 was Operation Deep Freeze with the new map layer and the new defender, Brah. Brah is a 2-speed, 2 health and has the MPX. He also has Maverick's AR-15. His secondary is the P226, and then he can either bring a C4 or proximity alarms for gadgets. He has a device called the Zoto Canister. This device is a throwable glass jar that breaks and sticks to surfaces and releases a freezing gas that deactivates devices, slows enemies, and reveals their footprints. You'll even be able to see their footprints from below, which makes him really good at fighting people that are doing clears above you. He has 4 of these throwable devices, and in the playtest, we were doing things like delaying hard breaches, attempting to juggle hard breaches with Bandit and Cade, and even hunting for feet with Pulse. A couple of things to note here is that it seems to interact with a lot of gadgets. It'll freeze almost anything and can even stop Capital fire arrows if it's placed first. Once one of the freezing canisters is broken, Maverick is still going to be able to blowtorch through it, so he's a great counter. And even if it's on a hard wall, you can also simply shoot the canister with bullets, twitch it, or zero it to immediately break the frozen area of effect. A huge change that also happened in Deep Freeze was the removal of cooking grenades. There still are going to be some spots that you are going to be able to nade through floors, like if you nade the top of the shelves on bank, or if you break a certain layer of flooring. Sometimes they have 2 layers, and then you'll be able to like go and chuck a nade up in between it. So there are still spots that you're going to be able to do some cool tricks with, but it's going to be a lot harder. With the nade change, they're also adding in a few operators that have nades, and they are IQ, Lion, Sense, Osa, and then my main Blackbeard. An entirely new map is here that gives off Batcave vibes, like I said in the intro. It's 3 floors, feels pretty large, and isn't depressing to play like Hereford base. So as of right now, it's 2 thumbs up from me. I usually spawn on the gate, which is the south spawn, and then lift. This is kind of like that Batcave entrance. It's going to lead to the roof. If you guys do choose to spawn on the south or the gate, here's a couple things you need to absolutely remember, okay? There's going to be a few spawn peaks that you need to watch out for. First one is going to be this window right here as soon as you get behind that black van. But one way you can counter that is actually come to the front of the van first and check that. The next is going to be people on this window right here. They're going to be crouching. The other is going to be people on this doorway right here. And if a player is really aggressive, they can actually be standing on this doorway waiting for a sound cue, and then once they hear it, they're gonna run out and then go for this. So yeah, there's a lot of spawn peaks right here. Maybe not the best one if you're just starting out. Go spawn north, okay? So watch out for this spawn. But for learning purposes, we're going to start from the south, because this is kind of like the main stairs, the main lobby right here, okay? There's 4 bomb sites on this map. There's going to be 1 up on the top floor, 1 in the basement, 1 on the east side of the main floor, and 1 on the west side of the main floor. So the first bomb site, it's literally just upstairs in this room right here, okay? Now here, remember this wall for a sec, okay? So that's the first bomb site. It's going to extend a little bit east. The second bomb site is going to be over here. This is the main floor, and this bomb site is going to be inside of briefing, and it's going to extend into this room, which is bunks. The third bomb set, resetting again, it's going to be on the west side, and it's going to be over here in weapon maintenance, and then it's shared with armory. A really cool way that you can actually attack this bomb site is if you rappel up on the south side, you can break this window with ram. And if you just break the floor immediately, you actually have some really crazy angles that go down into the bomb site. If they're none of those bomb sites, then the other one is going to be down here, and it's going to be in the lab support laboratory area. Now, if you are brand new to this map, spawning north, which is right here up in the Batcave, is what I recommend. There's barely any spawn peaks, and what you can do is just immediately run to the roof right here, okay? Just run up these stairs. And do you remember that first Bugatti drone tank that I dropped? Check this out. If site is upstairs, which is, as of right now, one of the most common, this is a wall that goes from outside into the bomb site right here. So getting control of this balcony is pretty strong, but you do need to watch out for these 2 windows, okay? But that's a good starting point. You are definitely going to need to just play and take some punishment. But trust me, once you learn it, you're going to have a lot of fun too. With new player onboarding, they're also bringing a new map learning tool that has 2 playlists. One is called Target Drill, which sends you to different areas of the map to take out bot targets. And then the second is called Landmark Drill, which sends you to different rooms around the map to learn what they're called and then activate a target there. This is going to be really good, especially on the new map, because like I said earlier, it seems pretty dang big. Well, Brah fam, we are finally at year 9 season 1, and this season is awesome with a ton of new content. Like the new operator who is bringing a new weapon, new ADS and attachment changes, a complete shield rework, and a zombie nerf, and the return of ACOGs. Yes, even Ash R4C. Let's get right into it. With the new operator coming, who is an attacker from Alabama named Deimos. Deimos is a 2-speed, 2 health, and has the AK-74M and the M590A1 shotgun. Neither of his primaries have scopes, but you will be stoked to hear about who got ACOG in just a bit. The secondary weapon that Deimos has is insane, and it's a custom 6-shooter called the 44 Vendetta. 2 shots is enough to kill anything that moves, and it has high destruction, high mobility, and a really clean sight on it. For gadgets, he has the option between frag grenades or hard breach charges. Deimos is an intel op that is good at hunting down defenders. His ability is called the Deathmark Tracker, and it's a small probe that reveals an opponent and Deimos to each other for a limited time. Even though Deimos does reveal himself to his victim, Deimos still has the upper edge because it is a superior tracker versus the one that gets put on himself. The tracker on the defender is basically a live feed, and the one that's on Deimos is more like a jackal track that pings. Deimos has 3 of these, and he can use them on any defender that is spotted no matter where they are on the map. The Deathmark Tracker reveals their position to Deimos and nobody else, so he's kind of a selfish op unless you give callouts. You're going to be able to cycle between the defenders that are spotted, and you can choose who you want to hunt down. Once you activate a hunt on the defender, you will be limited to using his 44 Vendetta for the duration of the hunt. If you're Cav, you are going to need to get really good at hiding, or else you are going to get a hunting squad on you really fast.
Take you out. I'll take you out.
No!
Deimos combined with Dokkaebi, Lion, or Blitz is so strong for hunting down roamers, it's actually kind of wild. The main counters to Deimos are Mute, Tuberal, and Vigil. If you're the one that gets hunted down, you get a notification. If you interrupt it before it activates, you are actually going to cancel the track on you, and Deimos loses one of his abilities. If you walk into a mute jammer, activate a Vigil ability, or throw a Tuberal at your feet after you've started being tracked already, you are going to interrupt it, but if you go out of the range of it or start sprinting or vaulting with Vigil, you're going to get tracked again. There's a lot of updates coming, and 2 of the biggest ones are the ADS speed changes and the rework to scopes. The time to ADS, or to bring your gun up fully scoped in from the hip, is being slowed down. The 1.5x has been completely removed from the game, and Ubisoft has added in ACOGs back for pretty much all the attackers that had the 1.5x before. And the interesting change here is that the 1.5 reticle is an option for the ACOG level zoom. There's now 4 categories for scopes or sights. The first one is just iron sights. The second one is the universal 1x's. The third one is called magnified scopes, and that includes the ACOG, the Russian ACOG, and the old 1.5 reticle, but those are actually 2.5 scopes. And then the fourth category is called telescopic scopes, and that one includes the old 2x reticle as well as the old 3x. From my testing, the OG ACOG does feel better than the old 1.5 reticle because the field of view has less blocked vision. The chassis on the old 1.5 reticle blocks a lot, and while it's still early, I'm excited to say the ACOGs may very well be back. And you probably did notice already from the clips, but yes, even Ash R4C ACOG is back. We're also getting updated stats for what attachments you put on your weapons. There's a new grip called the horizontal grip, which gives you a movement speed buff. The angled grip now makes you reload 20% quicker. If you decide to put a laser on your weapon, then you will ADS 15% faster now, which is helpful when you play ACOG. But don't forget that other people still can see your laser on the wall too. The shield rework is here this season, and this makes it so that you can no longer hip fire and get lucky headshots while being safe behind a shield. If you want to shoot, you are going to need to ADS and expose your head. Besides that, you are going to gain the ability to reload behind the shield, activate gadgets behind the shield like breach charges. You can now free look behind the shield so that you can get intel as you approach doorways, and you can even charge and vault through barricades, which is actually really fun. They also added melee pushback when you hit someone with your shield. It's kind of like a small Oryx charge. Basically, your head is always going to be protected unless you ADS with your pistol, and when you deploy your throwables, your arm is going to be slightly exposed, but your head will still be safe. Some player protection changes are being added in that are going to be adding restrictions to ranked. In order to play ranked, you're going to need to be a level 50 and have at least 10 attackers and 10 defenders unlocked. This combats hackers that are just buying the cheapest version of the game and jumping right into ranked. Additionally, any player that hasn't played a match for over a season is going to be required to win 5 PvP matches before playing ranked so that they are at least relatively updated with the latest happenings in the game. LMGs are going to be getting 2 main changes this season. The first thing is that they are making recoil on each LMG slightly easier to control. And the second change is that LMGs will now make operators move 10% slower. Their goal here is to make LMGs more of a support weapon rather than a weapon for entry fragging. And just like that, I hope you are now fully caught up on wherever you left off with Siege, or if you're brand new, I hope you have a good understanding of what has been going on over the last few years. Now we're going to jump into a bunch of basic tips and tricks, and I'm going to rapid fire these as quickly as possible. I know this video is quite long, so if you're listening to this right now, I truly appreciate you, even if you just clicked on the timestamp and you're listening to me talk right now and it makes no sense. Anyways, here's the first one. The first thing that you should keep in mind when playing Rainbow Six Siege is that the sun literally works in this game, okay? So this example is here on Clubhouse. The sun is kind of in this northeast corner, and if you approach the door from the north side, you can see that defenders playing catwalk can actually anticipate you peeking it. When the attacker is peeking from the south side, I actually don't see a shadow. Now, this has been pretty relevant in the game, and I think people started noticing this most back in like year 3, year 4, and shadows impact every single map in the game. Like, here's another spot from 4 years ago where you can look at this sliver of light on a door and then use it to pre-fire people that are holding an angle on skylight. It's crazy, and it's definitely something you got to keep in mind. The next thing you should be keeping in mind in Siege is to just have better crosshair placement. There's no point to ever walk around and be staring at the floor. Try to always keep your crosshairs in head level where somebody could be peeking you. A really good way to remember this is that if you're looking at a reinforced door, there are 2 buckles. That second buckle is always standing head height of a Rainbow Six Siege operator. You can use this general rule of thumb to basically just learn the muscle memory and always keep this crosshair placement, unless of course you know they're crouching or prone. This next one complements that last one perfectly, and it's to pre-fire more. As you play Siege and as you get to learn the maps better, you are going to know the common places. Rainbow Six Siege gives you a lot of ammo, and if you have even a tiny inkling that somebody might be in a certain spot, you should be pre-firing it. If I just swing and then just to see if somebody's there, he's most likely going to win that fight. This next one is that you should know that mute jammers are a circle radius. If somebody is mute jamming a wall and you have the option, you can actually rappel up and place a fuse, a thermite charge, or any other gadget. Like you could throw an ace charge up at the top of the wall and it will actually be out of that mute jammer radius. Unlike when it's electrified, the electricity does cover the whole wall, but mute jammers, because they're that circle radius, part of that is going down through the floor and then only partway up the reinforced wall. Next up is, did you know that if the diffuser is dropped, the icon on the bomb chassis will actually turn black with a yellow perimeter and yellow text? Say you're in like a 2v3 and you notice that the icon on the bomb chassis is black. You got to go and make sure you're holding that diffuser before you push them, otherwise you're going to be forced to just run around and play TDM. Also, this does not affect you if you are in the defender POV. This next one is something you can do to pretty much instantly get better, or at least get more intel for you and your team, and it's basically do not drive your drone straight into sight, spot the bomb, and then get your drone taken out. There's 0 point for you to do that. Especially when you're first starting again, you should do one of 2 things. Either drive your drone and then just place it in a flank watch position that's well hidden, or 2, just drive it straight to where you chose to spawn and pick it up when you spawn. Up next is you should increase your field of view slider much more. Do not play on 60 FOV. There is an inherent advantage to just having a higher FOV, and you probably already do this because this is in a lot of FPS games, but I still see a lot of people playing on 60. Just don't do that. You don't need to go all the way up to 90, but don't play on 60. A lot of people like to melee walls and then just kind of look through them. It is so obvious though. So when you're defending, if you do decide to use a melee hole, At least put a few, that way it'll force people to play the lottery and shoot you. You have a much better chance of survival, and it is more intimidating for attackers to come in. If attackers just see a single bullet hole, you are going to get pre-fired to the next dimension. Up next is do not plant on a soft hatch. If you plant on a soft hatch, a defender doesn't even need to defuse the bomb. All the defender needs to do is break the hatch, and because the diffuser leaves the planting area, the attackers are gonna lose. And honestly, this doesn't happen too often, but if it does, it's one of the biggest amateur mistakes, and now you don't need to worry about doing that. Up next, you should be breaking the glass on windows. When you break the glass on windows, you are going to be able to hear things better, whether they're rappelling or footsteps outside. The debris will fall on the inside, and you will know for sure that it's broken. The other thing you should be doing is putting a couple holes. You don't need to break the wall as much as I did in this clip. You just put a couple holes in soft walls before you reinforce, especially if you're bandit tricking or mute tricking, because that's going to allow you to hear the placement of the thermite charge or charges much better. If you're recently coming back to Siege, then a great quality of life change that has been added to the game is that you can now turn screen shake off. And so this next tip is I highly recommend that you turn screen shake off. Whether you're just simply using breach charges or rushing in with Ash, this is going to help you keep a much more steady crosshair placement, and it just feels so much smoother and easier to control in game. The next cool setting that you should know about and consider using is to turn your drone deployment on advanced. When you have it on advanced, you are going to be able to throw your drone and then press the drone button again to go on. This is going to allow you to like rappel up, throw a drone, rappel down without getting stuck, and then you won't be caught with your pants down. Say you are like droning outside and then somebody immediately jumps out. To automatically jump on your drone just with a single button, that feeling sucks. So consider using advanced, and then you can even do cooler tricks like, you know, throwing a drone at the door, forcing a defender's crosshair placement to go to the drone to take it out, and then you just swing it instead. The next cool thing that you should know in Rainbow Six Siege is anytime you have horizontal or straight line wood on the floor, the metal support beams underneath are going to be going in the opposite direction. I know obviously this makes sense, it's realistic, but just knowing this will help you create those lines of sight that might be a little bit more tricky, and it makes it easier to think about. Say you're just going to shoot a door below, or hold an angle below, or hold a 3-4 angle. One of my favorite 3-4 angles is this one here on Oregon. It goes all the way from Armory down to Laundry Stairs. It's nuts, and just knowing this generally will help you discover a lot more as you play the game. Even if you don't play Siege, I feel like you might know this already, but basically just never reinforce between sites. You're generally going to have a default rotate on each site in between. Sometimes you have extensions on the exterior walls to hold angles and lines of sight further, but overall, do not just reinforce between sites. Say you're an attacker, you drone out sight, and you see that something's completely cut off. A lot of times that means defenders only have one way to get back in. It makes it funneling so easy. You're going to get 300 and you're going to die. Up next is, unlike a lot of other FPS games, in Siege, lasers are visible to both sides. Both defenders and attackers are going to be able to see your laser. Right now, I can see the laser on the window. Makes for a really easy pre-fire. I know somebody's standing 2 feet away from the door. So anytime you're playing like shotguns especially, this is what is going to impact the most. Just keep your crosshair a little bit on the side. Don't put your dot where an attacker is coming from. Up next, you need to be taking out default cams. Look at this game that I played on Clubhouse recently. This guy is droning outside 10 feet away from a default cam. On the opposite side of the map, I see exactly where he enters from. I make those comms. I don't even play this game. I'm standing in the bottom of garage, and we win flawlessly, 5-0. I think only a couple cams got taken out this entire time. Like this one here in bar, I can watch Cav interrogate this dude. Just shoot default cams. And that one goes into our next tip perfectly. A lot of times you can shoot every single outside default from within like a 10-foot radius on the roof. So as you play, kind of take notes where outside default cams are, and you can also make one of your default plays, you know, rappel to a roof and take out all the default outside cams. That's really helpful. This next tip also related to default cams, and you're gonna see me get 1 kill and then get slammed. And instead of just going and like spectating a teammate, jumping on TikTok, I know it can be tempting, you should really just jump on the default cams and cycle through them. You know, in this day and age of Siege, a lot of times intel and cameras are being left alone, whether it's just a flank watch on the opposite side like I'm watching from mute here, or an outside default cam that literally makes you win the round flawlessly. Up next is look at drone holes as alternative methods. They're not just for drones. You can throw claymores in here, stuns in here, Zophias in here, grenades, all types of stuff. One of my favorite is to place claymores, especially because a lot of times the claymores cut off paths right next to site. You're gonna get a lot of free kills, and I still don't see a ton of people doing this. The next tip is sprinting is overrated. There's definitely a time and a place for it, don't get me wrong, but one of the #1 ways I see new players dying is they just sprint into somebody's line of sight and get slammed. You have a decent amount of time in Siege. Unless you're just holding an angle outside for the first 2 minutes, you don't really ever need to sprint. This next tip is that each time you die, instead of punching your monitor or keyboard, try to think of what you could have done differently that would have made you come out of that situation alive or on top with the kill. This has been one of my #1 tips in any game I play, all the way back from like when I used to play Halo 3 at a really high level. And especially in a game like Siege, this has been incredibly helpful. Of course, there are going to be those deaths that are just like crazy frustrating. Like, dude, that dude parkoured on top of a Christmas tree and slammed me, you know, but the majority of the time, instead of just immediately going to an excuse, you can literally get better with every single death if you could just kind of change that mentality. Anyways, you guys, if you're listening to me right now, thank you so much for making it this far in the video. I truly love and appreciate you all. I hope that you found this video helpful in some sort of way. And if you're coming back to Siege, let me be the first to say, welcome back.